Thank you all for coming today to our training on the reports module. This is kind of going to be a little bit longer than the one we did last week, so if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt at any time and we'll review anything. I'm going to share my screen, but I do want to preface this presentation with saying that uh, in the later last year, we did a reports waiver to have folks sign and acknowledge that they've read the privacy policy. Um, and so if you do not have a reports runner or reports admin, you won't be able to do some of these functions. A report runner can run existing templates and run and build on Simple Reporter. And reports admin can build folders, clone templates, edit templates, build new ones, all pretty much everything. So depending on which permission group you have, I'll try and indicate which step you'll be able to do and which ones you won't. And these permissions are assigned by your library director. So if you don't have these permissions today, please talk to your library director and we can get you the waiver to sign and get you those permissions. So let me share my screen. All right, so you'll see that we updated the wording on our splash screen. This reports news will go away in like a couple days, just so that everyone knew that it changed. So let's get started. All right, so with Evergreen Reports, and this is for specifically for the full reporter, you have my folders and shared folders. There are three elements to the reports. There's the template, the reports, and then the outputs. So I like to think of the templates kind of like a recipe. And I've used this example a lot of times, and hopefully it makes sense to everyone. If it doesn't, please let me know. So your template is kind of like your recipe. It's telling you what your ingredients are. What are you looking for? What elements are you limiting your request for? Like, are you looking for a count of patrons who checked out items or a list of new users' email addresses for your email listserv? Things like that. The report is then you then answering those questions. So a count of patrons who checked out items during a certain time frame. What is that time frame? What library did they check out the items at? And then the output is hopefully that list of patrons or count of patrons, or in the terms of the baking metaphor, your recipe, your actual mixture, and then hopefully your output is something edible. So if that makes sense. So for each element, you'll need a folder for your recipes or templates or reports to live in. And then again, your outputs have to be saved somewhere as well. So when you get started with reports, you'll have to create a folder for each element. So templates, you'll want to create an add top level template folder. So I will include this one here. You can type it whatever you want. It's a good practice to kind of be organized from the start. Because once you kind of get a lot of templates and things, it gets a little messy and it makes it hard to organize and move things around. So you can name them whatever you want. That is not a good bug to have. Hmm, I will have to check on that. You'll want to repeat it for reports and hmm, and then outputs as well. Once you have completed all of this, you'll see you'll have a little down arrow and that will expand to all of your folders. So I have quite a few, um, but you can have as many as you'd like. You can also have subfolders. So if you have, maybe you have a lot of cataloging templates, you can have a subfolder within that. So you'll see I have quite a list of nested folders. So I have my templates, and then I have ones that are just cataloging, and then I have ones that are item related. And then within that folder, I have ones that are a list of items or a list or a count of items. So to add additional subfolders, just like you would in like Windows, you would click on the folder you want to add a subfolder, and you select the add subfolder icon to add to there. So once you're within your folder, you have quite a few options. If you ever ask questions about reports, and I tell, or someone at the support desk says you're going to need to share the folder, what you'll do is you'll go to your templates, you'll go to the folder you have your report template saved to, and you're going to hit share folder, and then it'll ask you who are you sharing it with. So I'm currently logged in at our test library. It's fondly named the Nugget Davis Memorial Free Friendly Library of PA, now after my cat. And that library is in Test S, and that is in Spark. So I can share with all of my fellow users at my individual library location. I can share this folder with all of my coworkers in the system, or I can share it across all of Spark. For support, we just need you to share it with any level, preferably just your library, and we'll be able to see it. But if you ever wanted to share it with someone across your system, you could share it at the system level, or if it's something that you are working on with a fellow Spark library member, you can share it at the Spark level, and then everyone will see it. Conversely, if you have a folder that you're already currently sharing and you no longer want to share it, you can just hit unshare folder. There is a weird bug. Oh, it got fixed. Cool. There was a weird bug where it kept adding boxes to share and unshare, and it became this really long chain, but now it's fixed, so that's great. So that would be sharing and unsharing your folders. You can also rename your folder. You could delete it if there are no contents, and you can, again, add additional subfolders. Are there any questions on folder maintenance and sharing and unsharing folders? Okay.
Quick question, if I could.
Sure.
Sorry,
It's okay.
don't mean to hide myself.
No,
But
it's fine.
where exactly do the shared folders show up? Because I tried doing that yesterday. I couldn't find it after I
Good
shared.
question. They are all down here. Oh, well, for you, they don't move. They stay here. Oh, wait, let me fix that because that's one I share with everyone. Your folders, all your shared folders will be denoted with a parenthesis after the name. So you see my acquisitions folder is shared with all of Spark, but my annual report folder is only shared with the test system. I have one for Banger, so forth. So they're all indicated with the parenthesis. They don't move for you. But if you wanted to see someone else's folders, you would come down here to shared folders. So if I wanted to see, like our annual report folder is here, and they all live down here. And these are the ones that are shared currently with the rest of Spark. Does that make sense, Mark?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, yeah. Janet asked, can you move from one folder to another? Yes, you can move contents from one folder to another. Let me get an example. You will select the template that or item or report or output that you want to move, and you will select the box for the row that you want to move. And under this drop-down menu, you have some options. You can move selected, you can delete it. In this instance, I can clone the template, I can create a new report on it, or I can look at which reports were generated using this template from this menu. But for moving, you would select move item, and then it would ask you, okay, you're moving this template from one to another. Which folder do you want it to go to? You can't take like an entire folder though, like, and move it from, like I can't move testing templates to like my annual 2024. I'd have to move each template. I can't move the whole folder at a time. That is a good idea though. I'm gonna write that down. Maybe we can get that added as a function. Does that make sense, Janet? Okay. All right. So for reports, you have very similar options. You can rename it, you can delete it, you could add subfolders, you could share it. And then outputs are the same. With outputs, you have a pending and a complete. Pending are ones that are going to be run. So you'll see this one here is recurring. The next time it will run is April 1st and at 6 a.m. And then all of my individual instances where it did run are listed down below. So this is the only one where you'll have two different like subcomponents, if you will. And each of those have a drop-down menu with options. You can, clone or delete or move or view output. All right, any other questions about the folders? Okay. So you have your folders, and usually what we encourage folks to do is if you are looking to run a report, we'd encourage everyone to kind of look and see what is available rather than starting from scratch. It's really a lot easier to take an existing template and adjust it to what you need it to do rather than going and building it from scratch. So there is a search option. It lets you search all of the folders, or you can search a specific folder. Like if you know you have a specific template and you just can't find it, you can look for it in an individual folder. Or you can search like a specific users. So like the Equinox folder, those are our hosting provider, and they sometimes provide templates for us. So if we wanted to search all the Equinox folders, it's a good place to start. Just to note that if you ever see testing in the name of a template or testing in the name of a folder, those are templates that have been shared with usually us or with someone, a very specific user with the intent that it's not fully fleshed out and that we're still working on it. So just use those with a grain of salt, like be very cautious about using those. Also, in terms of sharing, only share templates that you are sure are running correctly. You don't want to share anything that's, something old or outdated that isn't running correctly. Make sure you delete those. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But in terms of sharing folders, just make sure you're only sharing things that you're confident work correctly. So if we're looking for something, say we're looking for a report, say just a count of circulation, you can type in a phrase, you can type in just one word, and it will, search all of those keywords. So, and then give you a list of templates that you can use. You have the option to expand. So it's going to show you the first 10. You can always expand it to more if you would like. And you can see like count of circulation or count circulations is a very popular report. You can add additional columns to this display. I like knowing the version and the owner. You can also include the folder now, which is really helpful. So if you need to look in your own folders and see where something is, that is helpful as well. Or if you wanted to ask someone about a template that they wrote, you can tell them, oh, it's in your ILL folder. A note about the version, if you are looking at reports, it's best to have version 5 and then eventually higher. If it has something lower, like a 4 or 3, we ask that you not use those. They are older templates that need to be updated, and they may run fine, but they may not run at all. So when in doubt, try 5 or higher. So those are a good rule of thumb. So we're looking for a count of circulations, and you just want to read the descriptions. Sometimes the names are very descriptive, sometimes the descriptions are very descriptive and helpful. So let's take this one from Equinox. Say this is the one that you want, and it displays a count of items by circulation modifier. Oh wait, that's just a count of items. So we wanted circulation. Here we go, daily count of circulations. It kind of fits all of our needs or most of our needs. So what we'll do is we will select the box and go up to the top. And from this drop-down menu, we are going to clone the template. General rule of thumb is if you are using someone else's report template, you're going to want to clone it so that you have a copy of it in your template folders so that if they ever decide to delete it, you're not without your report template any longer. So it will ask you to save it in a folder. And if your list is really long like mine, it'll be really overwhelming. But once you pick the folder where it lives, it will collapse and it'll give you more real estate on the screen. So that's helpful. You'll want to name your template. You can name it whatever you want. You can include a link to documentation. So if you build a template and you want to document how you use it or how you built it or what you should expect, any notes about it, you can use like a Google Docs link in there, or if you have something like a OneDrive link, you can include that in there. It's a really helpful tool. We use it a lot for our annual report templates. So I heartily recommend it if you are good about documenting things. You can also use the template description field to document your template. It helps when you're building a template if you kind of write what it's supposed to be doing, what it includes, and then if you ever get like interrupted and you have to come back to it like the next day, you kind of have an idea of what you were thinking when you were testing it. But you don't have to. Okay, so this one, since it's already kind of started off, let's take a look at what it has. Here on the left, this is what is called the source. It looks like a drop down, but since it's already been built, you don't have the option of changing the source. And the source basically is the part of the database that holds that information. So in this case, this is circulation. And then at the top, so it's one table, think of it as a giant spreadsheet with different columns and rows. And these are all your columns. So at the top of your circulation spreadsheet, hypothetically, you'll have a column for auto renew, the check-in date, the check-in library, so forth and so on. And then if you click on this drop-down menu, these are all the tables, so other sources, other tables that have related information to it that you can go out and grab. So in this case, if you need to look at more details on the check-in library, you can, it's connected via, it's called a join. It's connected and you can get additional layers of information that maybe aren't displayed here. Or the one that's displayed here says link, and you need to go to that in the joined table to get the info. So these are our columns. Boolean is it's a yes or no, 0 or 1 in the output, because these are all display fields. Timestamp is obviously time, the date. You can modify that. So if you only want the date, or if you only want the year, or if you only want the month, you can do that. Org unit is usually the library number. So like the database number of your library. So this is an instance where if you wanted it to display a specific name, you would go over to the joined table for checkout library and click on name, knowing that you're going to get the check-in library name, the full display name, rather than the unique number or the short code. Link. You never want to add a link to the top. You always want to go over here to the joined table and get the info you want from there. So check-in staff. What do you want to know about that check-in staff? Do you want to know just their username? Do you want to just, or their profile? Stuff like that. ID. In this case, Circ ID is going to be the unique number that is assigned to the checkout. And if you're ever counting checkouts, you always want to do Circ ID and then count. That means it's going to count the number of Circ IDs that are assigned for circulation during the time frame that you're looking for at the library you're looking for. Usually people don't do circulation duration. Just looking at the other data types, you have money, which is going to be a monetary value. Integer is just going to be a number. So in this case, remaining renewals, how many it'll just give you a number. Okay, so this is our displays that are currently listing. It's telling us the checkout library. And it's telling us the number of circulations. So if we wanted to add fields to this, say we wanted to know the circulation modifier of how many books got checked out or how many magazines or things like that, I would look first in my display fields here in the middle, and I would look to see if there is circulation modifier. And I don't see it, so I'm going to go over to my joined tables on the left, and I don't see it there. But I know that the circulation modifier is usually related to the circulating item. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to look in that list to see is circulation modifier in here. And it is right here, but it's a link. And I don't want a link because it's not going to give me anything helpful. So I'm going to go further down into my joined tables and I'm going to go to circulation modifier. And here I see it says name. So text is good. It's very easy. It's right there. When you want to display it, it's a good rule of thumb to pick the text. So I started at circulation and then I went to the circulating item, to the circulating modifier, and I got the name. So it's going to give me a box that I can edit. So I'm going to type out circulation modifier. because that makes more sense than name. Because if you give this report to someone else who's not familiar with it and didn't build it, they're gonna be like, well, what's the name column? I'm sure they could figure it out based on the word options, but it's always helpful to label your things accurately. I can transform these. I don't need to in this case because it's just a text field, but there are options if you need to. Most transforms on the display tends to be count, and that usually is related to circulation. So we'll leave it as raw data. I would like it a little higher in my list so I can move them up or down in these directional arrows. So it'll have the first column will be the circulating library, the second column will be the circulating modifier, and the third column will be the count of circulations. Any questions so far on the display fields? Okay, not hearing or seeing any. So the next thing is filters. And so filters are going to be how you narrow down your information. Because basically you can run the report on all circulation across all of Spark, and that's not really helpful for you. You only want to know what's happening at your library. So that's where filters come into play. So once you've selected filters, again, you have those same list of columns that you had from the displays. So we're going to pick checkout library because obviously you need to specify which library. You can leave the transform as a raw data. Excuse me, I just have to cough for 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. You can transform things, first value or count, but you don't really need to here, especially with your a list of libraries. So you want to keep it at raw data. And then the operator, does it equal an individual library? Does it not equal an individual library? Is it in a list that you can pick from? Not in a list? Is it empty? Is it not empty? Depending on what you're looking for, these operators can be helpful. Whenever I build a report for a library, it's always going to be in list. And this way it gives me a list of all the libraries. So if I wanted to run this report for all the libraries in my system, or if I have branches, I can select them all and run it once rather than having to go back in and run it multiple times. You do have the option sometimes to supply a hint. So, you can write in notes for staff, select the libraries, the checkout libraries. You can also sometimes supply a value. So if you wanted to set it up for your staff and only have them run it on certain libraries, you can pre-populate that field already. Most times we don't because we let you run them however you need to. But there are some times where you'll want to hit a filter value, and we'll go over that in a minute. And then you have your checkout date because you don't want all of circ from all of time. You only want a specific time frame. So this one is a daily checkout. So you'll see that it's changed from raw data is usually how it displays. And I'm just going to look at one specific date. But you have quite a few options. You can do it by month, you can do it by year, you could do day of the month, day of the week, week of the year. You can get pretty fancy. I usually stick to month, year, or date. And in this instance, it's looking at an operator of equals. So it's going to let me filter on one day. You can do between two dates, not between two dates, empty date, on or before, on or after, before a specific date. I like to do a date range, so let's do in between. And I think that's all I need. So those are the ones I wanted. So just to recap, I should see circulating library name. I should see, hold on, let me just check this because this doesn't look right. Circulation, check out library renewal. Yeah, I'm gonna put this one. I'm gonna move this up here. So now it's gonna give me the actual name rather than the call number or the ID number. Okay. Mm, okay. So we have the checkout name of the library, the circulation modifier, and then the number of circulations. And then we have filters. Let me just change that. We're going to filter on the checkout date range and then the library that we're checking it out at. So if you look at report layout, which is your final tab, it's going to tell you your field display order. So like the name of the library, the circulation modifier, and the number of circulations. And then the sorting order. Are you doing it from based first on the number of checkouts, ascending or descending, and then by modifier and then library? I like to have the libraries in alphabetical order first, so I'm going to put that first. And then I want it to do it by circulation modifier, and then I want it to sort on number of circulations. So I have all of my elements in place. I'm ready to save my template. Are there any questions so far? Okay, I'm gonna hit save. I should get a little pop-up that says my template saved successfully. And now I'm ready to run it. So I'm gonna go to the folder, the template folder where I saved it. I think I saved it in testing. And it's gonna display all of my folder contents. You can sort by name, description, and date created in these folders. You can also filter using this little funnel-like icon, and you can select an operator. So like if you're looking for a specific template and you know it contains part of a word, I think mine was called daily. So I can do contains daily, and now it'll narrow down to all of the templates in my testing folder named daily, or has the word daily somewhere in it. And then I can look at the date created column and see, okay, I created that today. So this is the one I'm looking for. But you can also not use the filters and just sort by the create date by clicking on the title of the header and get the same one. So I'm ready to run. Okay, Autumn is asking, do the filters automatically populate based on the display fields you chose, or did you add them in? No, this is a template that I am cloned, so they were already in there. The filters will not automatically populate. You do have to pick them if you're building it from scratch. I wish it automatically populated some filters. That would be very helpful. So that's a good, I would love that. That would be really helpful. Okay, so let's run this one. And to do that, I select the template with the box by checking the box. And then from our drop-down menu, I'm going to do a new report. Kind of this little similar. I can rename my template if you want, or the report. It's always going to pull in the template name, but you can always rename it to whatever you want. And it's going to tell you the template name and description that you use. So in case you ever need to go back to it, you'll know which one you used. It will show you the columns, but you can't edit it at this point. If you needed to edit the template further, you would have to clone this one and add your additional fields or adjustments. So it's always going to load your filters first. And it's going to give you your options. It's going to say you're looking for a checkout date with between 2 dates. So let's do yesterday to today. Not a lot of time, but enough for info. If you wanted to do relative dates are helpful if you're running it on a schedule, a recurring schedule. You can do it on between. It's not normally recommended, but you can. But you would put like your higher day to go. So if you wanted 1 day between 2 days and 1 day ago. So that'll be, you always put the higher number first. But I'm not going to do relative at this one. So we're just going to do a firm date of the 25th to today. And then you're going to pick your library names. My test system doesn't have any circulation. So we'll look at the Lackawanna County libraries. I used to work there, so I know they were open yesterday. You can pick one location or 2 or 3 or all of them if you want. If you hold down the shift key, you can select a range. So if you hold down the shift and you click the bottom of your range, it'll select all of them. These libraries don't circulate, so we'll uncheck them. All right, so those are the only 2 questions I had to answer. You'll remember from when we were building the template, we only had 2 filters. Obviously, more filters you add, the more specific you're getting. But sometimes if you're only looking for a basic number, you should be okay. So I'm going to hit my next button to go to my layout and scheduling tab. You have options to do pivot label tables. I really don't recommend using pivot tables in Evergreen because if you don't select them correctly, the report just won't run and then you have nothing to work with. So you can use them if you want, but only if you have 1 column or 2 columns at the most. Anything more than that, you really can't run one efficiently. Like you would never want to use a pivot table column selection in Evergreen on like a weeding report. It's always ones that have numbers or totals. You can choose your format on how you want to get your output. So you have Excel, CSV, HTML. You can have a bar chart or a line chart if there's numbers. And then you'll see these are in red because we need to select our report folder and output folder. So this one I'm just going to put in my testing folder. And you'll see those collapse when you've made your selection. And you can set this to reoccur if you want. This one I'm not going to recur because it's just 2 specific days. But if I had picked a relative date of like a day ago, I could have this set up to reoccur every day, and then every day it would run on 1 day ago. But we're not going to do that right now. We're going to run it now, but you also have the option to run it later in the future. So if you were setting it up to reoccur, you would, if you wanted it every day, you could just set it today at whatever time you want it to run. It'll run today, and then it'll run tomorrow at the same time, and then the next day at the same time. So be mindful when you're scheduling so that you're not running the same report over and over and over again if it's not the one you want. So a good recommendation is run the report once, make sure it has everything you need in it and that you're looking for. And then if you want to schedule it after you've confirmed all of the fields are displaying correctly. So we have our folder selected, we have all of our filters selected, we're not getting any warnings, we're good to go to run it. If you want to put your email address in there to get an email notification when it has run, you can do that. You don't have to. You can hit save and schedule a report. You'll get a little toast that says report saved successfully. And now you just wait. Either you'll get your email that it's finished, or you can go to your outputs folder. I saved everything. Test. And you'll see it's not here in the pending. So I know I can come down a little bit lower and see that it's complete in the complete section here. It'll have the report name, the time it ran, the time it started, when it finished, and then links to your output. You can either select it and select from the dropdown to view the output, or you can go right to like the download file option if you want. And then save it on your desktop. The HTML output is just going to give it to you in the browser. So you'll see the Abington Community Library and Albright, Carbondale, and Dalton. This is all their circ for the 25th through the 26th to date, or to time. And you'll see in the middle column all of our circulation modifiers, and then in our final column all of the circulation. So the Abington Community Library checked out 998 books between yesterday and today. And you can take, these numbers and do with it what you need to. You can download it and save it as part of a bigger spreadsheet if you need to. I will say that the outputs on the server stay there for 60 days. After 60 days, they will still appear in the list, but the link to the actual results will be no longer linked, so you'll have to run the report again. So general best practice is to download your results and save them if you need them elsewhere for another thing. Or if you have like a master spreadsheet of all your statistics, update that one, and this one will disappear from the server after 60 days. So any questions so far about finding a template, modifying it slightly, and running it? Just gonna take a sip of water. I will say that every report template will be slightly different. So these were just very easy changes. Sometimes we'll do something a little bit more granular, or people will ask for reports that are more specific on like cataloging elements, or I need a list of books. Yes, the report output, the link to the output to like download the file or look at the results will not will no longer be linked after 60 days. So even if you like click on HTML output, nothing will appear because the results will be deleted after 60 days. Yep. Okay. Let's go through one more. We'll edit another one. Um, just a note about circulation reports. We do something called aging circulation after 18 months. So if you're looking for circulation numbers within the last 18 months, you can use the general circulation source. If you need things that are older, so like a mix of this year, last year, and the year before, you'll want to use the source combined aged and active circ. If you want, you can always clone templates from my shared folders, which are Pales Davis, the username, and I have one specifically set up for aged, and then one specifically set up for 18 months or less. So if you have questions or need help with, or you're not getting results for your report for circulation from 2022, just reach out to support and we'll help you with that template. Okay, let's look at one where it's like a list of things. So I have a lot in my collection folder. I have counts of items, and then I also have lists of items. So say I need a list of items. Let's do by circulation date because I want to weed, or I want to find materials that haven't circulated in a certain time frame. So this one is a list of items that circulated in a date range, or this one's even better. List of items that last circulated before a specific date. So I want to look for items that haven't circulated since a specific date. So I'm going to adjust this one slightly. I'm just going to select my template that I want to clone. And then from the dropdown, I'm going to select clone template. I'm going to pick my folder. I have way too many folders. So, okay. So let's look at this description. And so it should have a list of items that have not circulated after a specific date. It'll display the owning library, the shelving location, the call number, the circulation modifier, the barcode, the title, the author, the last circ date, the last inventory date, the date it was created, copy status change date, and the copy status. So this is all of these options here. And so maybe I need to know the circulating library in the item record. It's going to display who owns it, but in the item record, you can distinguish between the owning library and the circulating library. So if you have items that float in a floating collection, or say you move from branch to branch periodically, this will help with that. So I see in my display fields, there's an option for circulating library, and it's the org unit. So I know that's going to give me the ID number, which is helpful if you know the ID numbers, but most people don't. I don't, and I work here. So let's not pick that one. So we're going to go to our conjoined tables on the left, and I'm going to pick circulating library. And I'm going to pick name because I want to know the name of the circulating library. So it's always going to put it at the bottom. I'm just going to edit that and change it to circulating library. And I'm going to spell library. And I'm going to move it up top because that's where I want it in terms of where it displays in the list. So this is nice. I like this new feature where we get to move things around. Link, sure, 1 second, let me move this up. Okay, a link is basically, I want to say a link, but that's not helpful. It's not a field that is readable to us. I'll describe it as, and Katie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just basically the unique join between the two tables. It connects the info. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's good. So if you think about relational database, which Evergreen is, as just, and this is a very simplistic way to think about it, but if you think about it as a series of spreadsheets, and then what you have is you have a column in one of that spreadsheets that says, if you go to this other spreadsheet and look up this number, it will be the same. And so that link is saying there's an entry in the spreadsheet in this which table in the table that is pointing you to this other spreadsheet. So what's so powerful about the Evergreen reporter is you can pull data from all these different tables, all these different spreadsheets. But so what the link is telling you is that data is in another place, but I can get it for you. And so you click into it and then you select what you want from that linked table. I feel like that was the internet is a series of tubes speech, but
There's usually, I feel like we need a graphic for that, like a flow chart. Maybe I'll come up with one after this. So, okay. So you have your circulating library. We don't want to do a link because it's not helpful. We always go over to the left and pick from the joined tables. So I have the fields I want in my display. I'm just going to check the filters. So these are the filters that were pre-selected from the person who wrote this before me. I have the one that you want when you're running reports on patrons or items is deleted. You don't want to include, unless you're specifically looking for a list of people who have accounts that have been deleted. Most people don't want accounts that have been deleted. You're going to say, Elizabeth, but why are they still in the database if they've been deleted? And I'll say, that's a really good question. And it's because we keep them, that we mark them as deleted. You're no longer able to see them in the staff client. But for reporting and statistic numbers, you need them in the background to refer to. So in this case, we're looking at a list of items, and I don't want to try and find items on the shelf if they've already been removed from the system or deleted or marked deleted, because they're not going to be there. Unless they are, and then you have another problem on your hands, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. So that is deleted. It's going to be raw data, and it's going to always be equals, and you can supply the filter value. You can have them ask yes or no, but most times it's just easier to supply the filter value as false. So is it deleted? No. Good first start. We're going to look for things on a specific shelving location. We're going to look for items, and we're going to do that as a list because everyone wants to either select one or more shelving locations. And we're going to pick owning library. So owning library in a list because I want maybe more than one. And I have my last circulation date. The transform is a date because I want one specific date, but you can do month, you can do year, whatever you'd like. I like to do date. And on this one, since I want it the last circulation date, I want it on or before this date that I'm going to supply when I fill it out. So on or before. Greater or less than this date. Or equal to or less than this date, before this date is how I think about it. And then code for the circulation modifier. And I'm going to do in a list because I want to select, books or magazines or kits or things like that. And then I have my report layout. And then I have all of my fields here. I'm not going to change the order on this one because there's a lot. Okay, so I'm going to hit save because I'm done changing it. Again, you can change the template name. It's always going to add clone in this parenthesis at the end if you've cloned a template. So if you ever find one from me or I say to use one, and it has like clone, 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 it's because I've edited it a few times and I forgot to change the name. So let's hit save. And I'm ready to run it. So I saved it in my testing folder. And I'm gonna grab it by the date. So I'm going to do a new report. I'm going to name it something else. Let me log out for just one moment. And let me log in as a real library because I don't have any shelving locations on our test library system. Oh. I'm gonna pick on Mark. Sorry, Mark. I'm gonna use your library shelving locations. Okay, sorry about that. I need to go to my templates. Go to my last created. I might put in a wish list bug. Do you folks feel like you should just see the last few that you've created? I feel like that would be more helpful. Let me know in the chat. So I'm gonna do a new report. And yeah, I think so too. That will be a bug we'll file. So you see our is deleted question has already been answered. It still displays. So we don't have to fill in the value. It's going to show me only the shelving locations for the Southern Lehigh Library. So let's look at the biography section. You can select multiple shelving locations. I'm just going to do one just so it runs a little quicker. I'm going to pick the library, Southern Lehigh. Yours will pre-populate with the library that you work at. I don't work at any library, so it doesn't pick one for me, but when you run yours, it will auto pick for you. Again, you can pick multiple libraries if you wish. You can do a relative date for days ago if you wanted. It only goes up to, I guess you can do negative dates, so it's not helpful. I guess you can put whatever in. In the old reporter, you can only go up to like 60 or something like that. That wasn't helpful. So let's do a real date. You can use the calendar picker for a date. You can pick the month and the year. So let's go back to like 2022. Let's do this date on 2022. It's a really long time ago, or at least it feels that way. Okay, so it's going to look for items there whose last circulation date was March 26, 2022. And I'm just going to do book. Again, you can do multiple circulation modifiers if you wish. I'm going to hit next. And then again, you see your options. You have to select a report folder. You have to select an output folder. Weeding reports tend not to reoccur, so I will skip that. I'm going to hit save and schedule a report. I got my report. So let's see it in the output. So now you'll see here in the output folder, we have an item in the pending section because it's still running. And then I can refresh this part of the screen until it finishes. Sometimes it takes a while. So I'll take this time to share some facts about the reporter. We have 2 slots on the reporter, so that means 2 reports can run concurrently across all of Spark. So if you're running a weeding report or something that takes a little bit longer to run, most reports take 5, 10, 15 minutes at the most. But if it's a longer report with lots of fields like this one, it's going to take a little bit longer. So we recommend that you only run one at a time. So if you're running a bunch of weeding reports, we ask that you only run one and wait till it's finished and then move on to your next one or schedule it an hour later. That being said, if it takes a long time to run, we encourage you to run it overnight. Set it to run at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock so that you're not waiting for it and that others aren't waiting for your report to finish to run theirs that they may need more urgently. A report can run for 2 hours and 15 minutes. Any longer than that, it will the system will stop the report and it will just stop the report and you'll not get an output and there'll be like a timeout error. I think I have an example down here. Oh, if you just add the error text from the column picker, it will say due to statement timeout. So I was testing something for a library and it kept timing out. So this is what it will say. Oh, this one's taken a while. 2 reports. If your report in general takes more than 2 hours to run, please let us know. We'll try and adjust the template and make sure that it's running efficiently. Sometimes when you have a lot of joins, there could be a possibility where you're kind of going in a weird circle between the tables. And so if we take a look at it, we can maybe find some ways to get it to run a little bit faster or not do these weird circle loops in the databases. Or maybe your has a lot of IDs and links instead of just text or count fields. This one's taken a while. So those are some just general facts about the reporter. Let me see if I have. None of mine are very exciting, the ones I run. This one was really one I wanted to show because it has a lot of also my naming conventions are really bad. These are bad examples. Please don't follow my weird naming conventions. Okay, we will come back to this one because I don't want to make you all endure my. Yes, aging circ. Thank you for that question. So aging circ is when an item is checked out at the 18 mark, or here, it's actually easier if I show it to you. So I fake wrote a book about my cat, Margot, and it's called The Adventures of Margot. So if you ever see that on your pull list, it's me. So when you look at an item and you look at the circ history list, you'll see names and it links to an individual patron who checked that out. It gives you all of that info. At the 18-month mark, this will change from a unique name link and it'll just say age circulation. You can still see when it was checked out, when it was due, where it was checked in and out at, all of that, but it won't link you back to the patron. And we did this for privacy concerns. At the 18-month mark, you really don't need to know that. Usually folks use this recent circ list for, if it's damaged or it's missing a part and you need to contact that last person. After 18 months, there's a good chance that they aren't the one responsible for the damage or lost part. So that it will no longer display. At the same time, though, in the database, it moves from active circulation to a different table called age circulation. And so that's why you need to use a different source. Does that help, Autumn? And then Susan, an engineer told me to date names with year, month, date, then subject. That is a good practice. I will strive to do that. I'm pretty lazy, and in the moment I name it whatever I'm thinking. Sometimes if I'm listening to music, it's like music lyrics to songs and stuff. So not very helpful. I don't recommend it, but yeah, I would name them very helpful, clearly identifiable things. All right, let me take a look back and see if that finished. Oh man, still going. Okay. Let's go on to building a report from scratch. All right, so if you need to build a template from scratch, or you're using an older template that is not a version 5 or higher, and you need to completely rebuild it, one way to do that is to take, if you have 2 monitors, you can do this. You can select your report, maybe template that's not working quite right, or you need to rebuild it completely, and open it in one window, and then have your other window be the new one. So you can just hit clone. Clone is kind of your default for if you need to edit the template in any way. And then this way it kind of tells you what you put in the displays and what you put in the filters. And you can kind of compare. It also tells you which source you used. So let's go to testing folders. So I can put that there. And we're going to do new template. So this is a template that we're starting completely from scratch with. You have your name that you have to select, and you have to provide that. It has to be unique. So demo template. Okay, so your demo template, whatever you're going to name it, will go in the name field. Again, if you have documentation that you're writing for it or something, you can put that URL in there. And then the template description, if you want, you can put your notes in there as well. The next part is you have to select the source. So you have core sources and then other sources. Core sources are usually the ones that people use the most. For us, those tend to be circulation, ILS user or patron is for if you need info on patrons, or items is, if you need specific info about an item. Those are the top 3. You can also use combined and age circulations if you're looking for items that have circed or your criteria is circed outside that 18-month window. If it's within that 18-month window, you can still use circulation. Those are fine. Let us do item. So once you pick your source, you're kind of locked in. You can't pick one source, make selections, and then change the source. You have to stay within the source that you pick. So before you commit to it and start adding fields, it's a good practice just to see which ones are here, like what is in here. It's also a good thing to kind of write out what you're specifically looking for. I usually kind of do it in a sentence format, like I'm looking for a list of items that are currently lost and paid for. And I need to know who owns it. I need to know, basic info like title, author, barcode, shelving location, that kind of stuff. So kind of just thinking about all of the things that you want to see at the end in your output, that's very helpful. That way you're not kind of writing it, testing it, and then finding out, oh, well, I needed all these other things. And then thinking about your filters. How are you narrowing down the vast collection of info? Or you're looking for items, so you want to make sure it's not deleted items. You want items out of a specific copy status. So you're going to make sure you include that. You're going to make sure you include the owning library because you don't want everybody's stuff. You just want your stuff. So what we'll do is item tends to be the best one for that. And as you kind of start looking at other people's templates, you kind of get an idea of commonly used or paths to find the info. And the new design of the reporter kind of helps with that. I really like that about it. So let's start with the display. So we're looking for a list of items in a specific copy status. So first things first is we can go through the list. We definitely want barcode because I want to know the barcode of the item. I'm going to need the circulation modifier, but I see it's a link. So I know I need to go to the left and select modifier. And I want the name. And I'm going to edit the name. You can see the path is here. You're using the item source, circulation modifier table, and the name field. So whatever you change the display name to, you at least have this path below to show you how you got there. So I'm going to change this to circulation modifier. I'm going to need back up to the item table. I'm going to need the item status. I want that to be in the display. And I also see that's a link. So I'm going to go to item status. And I only need to see the name. So I'm just going to set that there. I'm going to name it status. You could put item status if you want. All right, what else do I need? I need to know, just looking at this top level list, I want to know the shelving location. I see that it's a link, so I'm going to go over to shelving location and I'm going to select name again. Okay. But I also want things like the call number, and that's a link as well. I'm going to go over to call number, and I'm going to do call number label because that's what I want. If you use prefix, it's suffix, well, you will have to add those as well. You'll see that they're a link here in the call number table, so you need to click the down arrow to get those joined tables. A lot of libraries don't use the prefix or suffix, so I'll leave it out on this one. But I do want the title and the author. And this one has always kind of stumped me. It stumped me for a really long time. You have to go into the bib record, and then you have to go down to simple record extracts. And then I'm going to pick the title and the author from here. It's kind of a long journey to get there, but that's the best way to do it. So I have my barcode, my modifier, my status, my shelving location, my call number, my title, my author. I think that's pretty good to easily identify the things that I need. So I'm going to go to my filters. And it's going to tell you up here at the top too what you've picked for your display, so it kind of gives you some guidance. I know I want things that are not, since I'm running a report on items, I want to make sure I include that is deleted. And I'm going to supply the value of false just right off the bat because I don't want things that are lost. I do want things that are in the copy status of lost and paid for. So I'm going to go back to my left side here and go to item status. And in this case, I want the ID. Because if I use the ID in a list, it will populate the list for me as a filter. As a display, it will only show me the name, the number of the status. But in this case, the filtering in the reporter knows to convert the ID, of the status to the name that it appears in the software. So when you want the name of something to display in the display fields, pick the name. If you want to select the name from a list in the filters, pick the ID. So I have is deleted, I want specific statuses, and I want library who owns it. So again, just from experience, I know the owning library of an item is actually in the bib record. So I know to go to call number and then bib and then owner. And this is going to be in a list as well. So my list of items that are in a specific copy status. That's kind of how I would filter it. You can add additional filters, like say you want things that were moved to that status during a specific time frame. Let's do that. And in that case, we again start at your top. And this is something, the last status change time. And I'm going to do a date. And I'm going to do between dates. So I'm going to look for items that are been changed in between two dates. Oh, sorry, I missed the questions. Just wondering how long everyone waits after something has been lost and paid before deleting it from the collection. That's a really good question, Susan. We recommend if you don't use, so there is a lost and a lost and paid status. There's two different statuses. If you only use the lost status, we recommend waiting at least 2 years before you delete it, just on the off chance that somebody brings it back and you want the fines to be removed and for you to be able to take action on the item. If they pay for it and your policy is once you pay for it, it's yours, you never get a refund, or you can just delete it immediately because then you don't have to refund it or anything. And Jean is asking if it has been paid for them, they withdraw it immediately. Nice. Yeah, this one's a little bit based on your local policy. If you don't use the lost and paid status, let us know. We can turn it on for you. I find it very helpful when you're trying to identify things to weed, because once it's paid for, usually libraries don't refund it because that's a auditing and bookkeeping nightmare, I assume, getting money back for people. Gina's asking if it is just lost, we withdraw after 6 months. Do you think that's too small of a time frame? Not really. If you, as a library in practice, tend not to see things come back after 6 months, there's also a setting that we can adjust if you want, or if you have it. It's called the max lost interval, and what that does is that's the amount of time that you allow something in the lost status to be forgiven if it's returned. Yeah. So if you bring it back within that interval, you can get your the fines removed automatically, and then outside that time frame, it stays on there forever. So 5 years late, yeah, that kind of happens often with kids' books.
So I did want to clarify, Elizabeth, because of some of the other comments in the chat, that if you delete the item, it does not delete the bill off the patron's account. So this is good because you don't have to, as Susan was asking about, you don't have to go in and manually bill that if you want to delete the item. However, if it is your policy to, like a lot of libraries, if you do bring it back, even if it's been a long time, they'll revert to the overdue fees instead of the lost fees. So once you've deleted it, it's just going to screech at you when you check it in, and you can't tell who lost it or what the deal with it was. if you send us the barcode, we can figure it out. But on your end, you're not going to be able to get any of that information. Whereas even if you have it set to not change any billing on a long lost check-in, you can see, oh, who did bring that in? What was there something going on there? So there's costs and benefits to both. Yes, the link to the item will still be, again, Elizabeth said this earlier with patrons, when items are deleted, they're harder to find, but they're still in there. So it will still link to that item in the patrons account. It'll still have all the information. And if you get to it from that, you'll be able to see that the item is deleted, but it will give you all the information. But if you aren't coming at it from the patron side, if you're coming at it from the item side and you're trying to scan that barcode, you can't come at it that way once it's been deleted. There have been, didn't they find a book recently in the Midwest that someone had checked out in like the 1800s or whatever? I mean, people bring stuff back, and you want, on the one hand, you want to be accommodating and generous with people who are bringing stuff back to you. Oh, is there really a shelf? I'll have to look that up. And on the other hand, if you replaced that item 2 years ago, there's not much you can do. So it's that's always a local policy one.
Okay. Any other questions on lost items?
You never know, Elizabeth, what people are gonna want to chat about.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. I'm glad people have questions. Okay.
No, oh, sorry. It is really a good question. It's just always interesting to me what people are going to be curious about. Always ask. We're always happy to chat about it.
And usually, depending on who answers the question, the answer may vary. So between Katie, Kat, and I, we all have different library experiences. So what we had at the library we came from might be different from the one that you're at. So
yes, different lenses, definitely.
Okay, so we have our report. I think I have all my filters that I want. I'm gonna check my layout. I have that. I'm not gonna fuss with that too much. So I'm gonna hit save. And let's check and see if my report from Mark's things is finished. Still not done. It's a long time. There might be somebody else running reports at the same time. So we will just have to put a pin in that one. My apologies. I should have prepped example. So if I wanted to run my report that I just ran or just built, I'm gonna definitely put in that book because you'll see my demo template. It has the very unhelpful lack of description. So I'm going to, but I know what's in it. So I'm going to do a new report. I'm gonna name it very creatively something. And you'll see again that my item is deleted. Filter has already been answered, so I don't have to select that. Remember when I said ID is the item status ID, and see how now it's listing names instead of numbers. That's very helpful. So I'm looking for items in lost and paid. And I'm going to run it on Black. Well, it might not get results, but we'll see. Let's do Albright in the Lackawanna County Library System because I know for a fact they use lost and paid. And then we're going to look at a relative, the date range. Let's do from the beginning of the month to today. Again, we're picking our folders. And I want Excel. So I'm going to hit save and schedule a report. Okay, let's see. Katie, can you run the query and see if there's other reports running? Oh, the demo report came back quicker than this one. There might be something with this one that we have to fix. So my demo report finished. And let's take a look. No. So you'll see I selected the Excel option. So now I have the Excel option to download, the CSV option to download, and the HTML. So let's look at the HTML. Okay, so these are items that were marked lost and paid at the Albright. And I'm only making a funny face because I picked book. Nope. No, I didn't. I didn't pick a circulation modifier. I just did status. So these are all the items that,
Yours is the only report that's running.
okay, it's just taking a while. Okay. So these are all the items that were marked lost and paid within the last month. They're not all owned by the Albright. That's the only concerning thing. So I'll have to look at that. But these are the fields that I did request. So that is a good indicator. So
Did you do owning library? Because those do all look like resource sharing partners.
yeah, that's why I'm. So this is a good teachable moment. It didn't give me exactly what I was looking for. I know based on the barcode that they're not items owned by the Lackawanna County Library System. So I'm going to go to my report folder. I'm going to find my template. I'm going to clone it so I can figure out what happened. Pick my folder. And I'm going to look at my filters. It says owner. Oh, owning library. My apologies. I did the wrong one. Call number owning library. And I'm going to do organizational unit ID in a list. There we go. Let's try that again. I went too far down the joins. And a lot of this is just things that you're gonna learn from experience. This took a really long time. I've been using Evergreen for 10 years, actually, this month, 10 years. So
Happy Evergreen anniversary!
don't be frustrated if it's not working on the first go. It does take a little while and just some general experience.
I have been using Evergreen off and on since 2012, since version 1.6, and it's better than it was in 1.6. I'm here to tell you. And Elizabeth is better at the reporter than I am, even though I've technically been using it longer.
Okay, let's pick our friends in Lackawanna County again. I don't think anyone from Lackawanna County is on the call. I don't see anyone, at least. All right, we're gonna do the Albright. And then next. And then our folders, we'll pick. Thank you. All right, let's give that a minute. Wow. Mark, I didn't know your biography section was so big. Do you have a lot of items?
Oh, that's the 80-year-old late thing. Thank you, Megan.
1939. Nice. What was it called? Oh, it was a copy of Arthur Conan Doyle's The Refugees. It's always interesting what books they find too. Okay. All right, this one's a little longer. Sorry. And you can hit refresh as many times as you like until it's done. So we're kind of at the 1 hour and 30-minute mark, and that's usually when people are tired of hearing about reports. So I will pause here while we wait for the reports to finish and ask if there are any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions. I will plug the support page for Spark. We have at Spark support.sparkpa.org. This is our support documentation. If you go to, we have one for reports, the full version, and one for simple reports. I have all the how-to articles here featured at the top. Down here at the bottom, this is a review of the refresher training we did the other day. But we have top info on the report, how to do report folders, how to search templates, how to clone or edit an existing template, an existing report, and then just going through running and scheduling and viewing reports, and then creating a report template from scratch. And each of these pages has information about how to get started, info about elements of the reporter, links to like template terminology. So if you want, you can see like the different data types. So like ID is the unique number assigned by the database to identify a record. So counting, you always want to use IDs, things like that. That one's helpful. It also does field transforms. It goes over the operators, goes over the filter values, things like that. So we have all of that. And then if you aren't finding what you need, you can always contact us via support on the support page. See if these finished. Oh my goodness, they're still running. Okay.
The other thing I would say is please email us. If you are looking at this and you can see how many tries it has taken Elizabeth sometimes to get a template, look at the existing templates, take a look, clone some things. If you get stuck with it, ask us. We're pretty good, and when we're out of our depth, we have more resources to ask for help from Equinox as well. So I always tell people, you know, like give it a try, but don't feel like you need to be creating templates from scratch or, you know, really fighting with cloning things. We will absolutely, you know, almost most things we have, we can find a template that it's just like we're using slightly different words, and so it's, you know, we search more effectively, or it's something that we have that isn't shared right now. And if it's not something we already have, usually we're able to clone something relatively easy. And if it's not, if it's something that's legitimately difficult, Elizabeth gets really excited. You will make her day.
Oh, you're right. It didn't start. So someone else must be running a report. So it hasn't started yet. So that's why.
Yep, there is
Thanks,
another
Teresa.
one that started running at right at 3:30.
Okay. So that is a good observation. Thank you. But I'm still just concerned that my other report for that list of books that hadn't searched in a while isn't done yet. And it's,
No, you started it right at 3:01.
yeah. So it should
So
be.
35 minutes is it's not ideal.
Yeah, I was going to ask Mark if that's a larger collection at his library, but I don't see him in the list anymore. So, all right. Well, if there aren't any other questions about the reports module, I think we can stop here. We can keep looking at templates, but a lot of it isn't gonna stick until you're ready to actually use it. So obviously, I'm more than happy to meet with you if you want to work through a template. Or if you want to share a template and say, hey, put it in a shared folder, here's the name of it. Can you take a look, see why it's not working? And then we can kind of work on it together. either via email or via video. I was helping someone earlier today with a template, and we walked through it via video on Zoom, and it's a lot faster for them to see it in action. So, and also then I can see what you're seeing, and it's easier for me to help you know what to pick. So, any other questions or comments before we wrap up for the day? I hope this was helpful. Thanks, Megan.